Last year, Bill C-2332, which basically tried to remove the monitoring of waterways. It removed the right for environmental consultation, and it also attempted to remove key indigenous land rights. So there's also been a surgence there of the Idle No More movement, of trying to show this systemic erasure of indigenous rights in order to push forward with the tar sands. And so, yeah, moving forward, we really want to continue to keep this international pressure and international light on what's happening on the UK corporations and banks that are invested in the tar sands. As we all know, there's also the TTIP negotiations that are happening there. They have huge implications for expansion of the tar sands and the again, the eroding of the ability to hold companies to account in those regions. But it's also, it's a very personal connection as well, a very personal relationship. When I went to the Healing Walk, a lot of those communities are so in need of international spotlight, because often it's one or two people in a community that are surrounded by industry that are getting the courage to step up, to ask that their traditional leadership move away from deals with industry and start to question what is happening there. And again, this is a community that are pushed to the margins often in terms of their economic development, so they really need that support from us to say, you know, we stand with you in opposition to this. A few weeks ago there was a shooting in Ottawa, and it was unrelated to I don't know if it was a terrorist act, but the government basically said, well, this was an act of terror. It was a shooting that happened in Ottawa, and they passed a new terrorist act from that. And in that, it gives more rights to the Canadian government to increase their surveillance of Indigenous communities, Indigenous activists and environmental activists. Right now, even environmental charities that are working on tar sands, you know, they've had crazy amounts of auditing. They're no longer they're being pushed out and silenced about talking about these operations. So again, that continual erosion of democracy and the ability for communities to take a stand on this. So yeah, in the next while, we really want to make sure that those communities are being watched. There are blockades that are happening with the Yitsuatan camp, which would start one of the major pipelines again. And at the moment, they're getting ready for winter, and so they're gathering foods and medicines and starting to prepare to take that land and to stay there. And they've already had helicopters flying over and surveillance. So again, a country that we don't think would be repressing its communities like that. We really need that pressure there. And the last thing I'm going to mention, and then I'll open it up for some questions, is that, as I mentioned, the UK government has played a real role in this in terms of working with the Canadian government to lobby against the EU Fuel Quality Directive, which was the climate legislation that would stop tar sands coming into Europe, because they're basically working with BP and Shell. So we've seen huge amounts of lobbying that's been happening with them. So for the past few years, there's been a meeting happening called the Canada-Europe Energy Roundtable, and there's usually a host of corporations, and the UK government has hosted this meeting, and there's been discussions there about how to stop the FQD, how to move forward with this relationship. And we've been there the past few years, and we've done a few direct actions in there. We had a little oil orgy on the table and to sort of show how they were in bed with each other, and we've done a few things out there. So we're going to go back on Tuesday the 18th of November and to have a peaceful, non-violent direct action outside, and that's one of the tactics that we've been using, and the strategies is to really sort of keep showing this sort of global pattern of what's happening with Canada and how they're trying to undermine climate legislation both in the EU and in the international process as well. Cool, so I'll just take a breath and see if there's any questions.
We have to be quite brief with our questions, so I'm going to cut it off after 5 minutes, because we have a lot of speakers who've come and need speakers.
Where's the Direction Action?
It's just next to 10 Downing Street. Yeah.
The date again?
Tuesday, November the 18th.
What time, sorry?
If you give me your email, I can send you details then. But it will be an early one, because they'll be starting at about 9, so I'll probably get there about 8.
Any other questions?
Sorry, you probably already told us, but I can't remember if you have. You referred to we. Who are we?
What do you mean? We? In which context?
You were...
the group, the organisation.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
okay. Yeah, sure. So the UK Tar Sands Network, it's a grassroots organisation. I'm the co-founder, so we work with the Indigenous environmental movement in North America, and then we're a sort of loose coalition. So often we work with different partners like Climate Camp, Rising Tide, Corporatewatch. We've worked with them in the past. So it's quite an amorphous network of people, and we're held accountable by the communities. That's where I get my directives from, in terms of making sure that the activities that we do here support what's happening back there, and so to continue to sort of amplify things internationally there.